I did. What?
You didn't what?
Welcome. We hopefully will have some more people joining us, but it's really lovely to meet you, Sam, and to see John again, and Layla again, and Curtis and Philip, who are part of my core team. So we represent Corporate Heart International, among other things, and a passion to bring the heart to business, the human element to business. And we have another newcomer here, Lauren. Good afternoon, wherever you're from, Lauren.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let us know where you're hailing from, because we haven't met before. Where are you?
I'm based in Idaho at the moment.
Idaho. Excellent. So we have Europe, UK, Canada, and America represented. This is wonderful. Hello, Lauren. Welcome. For whatever reason, you've been drawn to come here. It's a wonderful to meet you here in this space of magical conversations. And to explain a little bit, for those of you who haven't met me before, and I've only met Sam and Lauren online literally in the last very short while. For me, magical conversation is a space of non-judgment, a space of creative intentions, a space of contribution, because we're all unique and beautiful human beings. But there is a nature of what we do, which is to understand each other through a framework which we call gender dynamics intelligence, so that we are aware of who we are as men and women, and different types of men and women. And I'm very joyful to report that I've been working online with some wonderful women in Malaysia, because I lived in Malaysia for 4 years over the last 10 years. And in that cohort, we've got different types of women, and we call our women either magicians or sovereigns. So you can have a think about what maybe you are as a woman, and our men, we've got 3 men here today, we've got rulers and philosophers. So in a minute, we'll get into a little bit about that. But over the last 2 years, we've been gathering every month to explore. In 2020, we were exploring the real synergy of how men and women come together and to work together, live together, love together. You know, what is that real synergy? What's that authentic synergy? And synergy being all the parts coming together in a magical conversation context. So in a world which is becoming more and more polarized and judgmental, this is a very different way of looking at what we'd like to think of as the authentic power grid of human love, human intention. So we're looking in these monthlies, we're looking to understand certain aspects of that. And something I wanted to look at today was actually authentic harmony. So I want you to kind of put that into your mindset, into your mind flow. So just to backtrack to where we were talking last month about authentic power, the authentic power being to understand who we are as individuals and not authority power. So how do we put that grid together? And as we go forward, I want to hear your voice in the conversation and to put your details in the chat, so that in terms of, as Curtis has just done, in terms of who you are officially, your LinkedIn profile or whatever it is explains you to the world, put that there so we know who each other is. But really this is about who we are as amazing, heartfelt human beings. And I would love your view on harmony, authentic harmony. And I want to ask you a question first. If you were a part of an orchestra and an orchestra was producing a very beautiful, harmonious piece, what instrument would you be in the orchestra and why? And the reason being is that, you know, we know there's a collection of different instruments and they produce this harmonious output. So let's just find out who we are. So maybe introduce yourself in the form of the instrument that you are in an orchestra and why that would be part of your harmony in the world. And I love the fact that John is smiling away there. So I'm going to ask you, John, what you think. What does harmony mean to you, and where were you?
Well, I was going to laugh because I don't even know what the instruments are in an orchestra. So, but outside of the instrument, I would say that in terms of harmony, I think that last time we met, you know, Lisa had mentioned inner child. And I think that just all the inner self, I think it starts within ourselves, right? So our original nature, we have to be whole within ourselves. And I remember I was reading an article and there was a story about an eagle that lives with or grew up with chickens. And, you know, they saw the eagle and the chicken family that he grew up with. They saw an eagle flying up in the air, and they said, "Oh, look, that's the eagle. You know, it flies around, but we can't do that," type of thing. And so the eagle who grew up with the chickens said, "Oh, wow, that's very interesting," or he would have loved to do something like that, but he doesn't know. He has not realized his own his original nature. And so I think that we have to be aware of our fundamental reality in order to feel comfortable within ourselves. And that's the initial step. And then I think that starting from there, you kind of focus on universal truths. And then based on that, you'll be able to connect with other people, because the love that you have for yourself or within yourself, you can share with the same people, or you see that within the same people.
That's beautiful. Thank you, John. That's beautiful. And I love that. Thank you. And you're based in New York, is that right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, absolutely. So who would like to share their view on authentic harmony with using the orchestra as example, and how that might relate to what we envisage in the world as our vision for bringing a new future together? Do you want to go, Leila?
Yeah, I was trying to think what I'm gonna have to argue about that. But really spontaneously, I would rather be a conductor if it were at all in an orchestra, like not being really the expert of an instrument, but bringing the harmony between all of those instrument experts. So, but if you ask me for an instrument, then I would go for piano because it brings some quietness, maybe if people are too excited or argue with each other. So bring some peace of mind, a dream also because of the melody, and yeah, relaxation, so that everyone can have kind of like this magical conversation actually to move forward together. So that's why I would be more a piano person.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And
That's
as we as we really listen to each other, what I'm picturing when I hear what you're saying, and I'm a picture person, as you can tell from the word I used, is, but I'm looking at how does, we like to talk about mind flow as opposed to mindset. So how do we orchestrate that? And I could see you as a conductor, Leila, because you have that beautiful sense of direction and everything.
Trying like to put people in harmony with each other. It's not about being like a boss or no. It's more about trying to find consensus between people from different backgrounds, right? To bring respect, to really, educate them with respect, love, and that's why I think the conductor is nice for that, bringing the harmony from different instruments, right?
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. How about you, Sam? Give us an insight into your view. Go off mute.
Excuse me. I definitely resonate with the idea of being the maestro, the conductor, allowing your entire team to flourish and do their part. So I quickly Googled the components just to kind of revisit the instruments in the orchestra. And I guess I love the idea of the violin having the highest sound and allowing the harmony to be felt by the people, by the audience listening, and kind of just feeling into that heightened sense that just really like makes our entire bodies and our cells just come alive. So I would have to say the violin if I were to be an instrument in the orchestra.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. I love the way you describe that. It's making, because obviously the audience is part of the whole performance. Yeah. So we could see that in terms of our communities, obviously in business, our customers, but I think that is so important. I was reading something this morning about, who is listening to you? And I've been doing I'm in the middle of a 30-day challenge about listening. So it's really about listening. Is the audience sitting there on their mobiles, or are they actually engaged,
And not even engaged with like just an attention, but a somatic engagement where you're actually feeling into the harmony of the music and just getting like someone mentioned earlier, in the flow of what's happening and kind of resonating with that, and our cells resonating with that, our entire beings just being part of the entirety.
I love the note of the cells. Let's come back to that. Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Lauren,
it's a great question. I love the question.
We'll unfold it more. Lauren, tell us about your sense of this.
It's hard. I'm a musician, and I was actually an orchestral performer. Back in the day, I in a former life, I was a professional trombone player, so I have a soft spot for lower brass. However, in this context, I first was thinking about percussion because of keeping rhythm and driving the rhythm. But then I was also thinking about, I'm forgetting about what the name of it, but the lead violinist, they are like the maestro of the whole orchestra. Mm-hmm. And they provide immense leadership for everyone. They set the, well, I mean, piano can do it too, but the lead violinist is the one that, plays the note for tuning, and I think that there's an immense power to that. It's hard because who I am is I'm a connector. And I was just like, I feel like when it comes to the orchestra, I'm the music itself. I'm not the instruments.
I love that.
Like that's what I feel more drawn toward. Like I'm the music on the page that people can connect to. I'm the actual symphony itself that people can play, and there's all these dynamics, but it's even more than that. It's not the music on the page, it's the whole piece. You know, I think about, like, in my more spiritual experiences playing music, where I absolutely love, like, as an example, there's Sibelius Symphony No. 2, and the final part of the symphony, where there's just like this giant buildup of sound, and it's like there's like that there's the pieces, there's the piece, and I'm losing words here, but there's the aspect of the music that threads everyone together, and it's like you're building towards something together, and you're all connected because you're all listening to one another to make sure that you're in tune, but then you're also like in this flow where you're letting the music take you on this journey, and it's a profound spiritual experience. So it's like I'm all, like, I guess I'm more of the music on the page than the instrument, than one particular instrument, even though it's immensely powerful. And I don't want to diminish my leadership in any way, because I don't think like I am like the queen leader of everything, because I think that we're a global community of leaders, but that's why there's a lot of symphonies. And so I'm like one piece of music that can connect people together.
That's absolutely beautiful. I think what's so fascinating is that we're creating a piece of music here with these different themes. Can you feel that? I feel this. And being a real musician, I'm not a musician. My husband's a musician. There's guitars and keyboards around, but I'm a dancer. So I love to dance, or dance as it would be in America. But I love dancing, and that in order to dance, you have to feel the music. So you have to feel the rhythm, so the timing, the tempo, all these things are important. And one of the things my husband always says is that, when you're playing a piece of music, if the audience aren't dancing, you need to pay attention to changing the music if you want the audience to dance. So if we apply this ongoing metaphor to the authentic harmony and the power grid of humanity in business and in life, this is absolutely beautiful. I can feel Curtis feeling all this. So I'm going to ask Curtis to put in his philosopher viewpoint.
Well, I have to qualify this with I'm neither musician nor dancer, but I have 5 left feet, and but I do try. But no, but yeah, I think maybe it's a philosopher thing, maybe it's just a me thing. I'm very spiritual, and I do feel music. It flows through me, and music is a very important part of my life. I cannot create it, I cannot utilize it, but it flows through me very, very naturally, and it's very powerful, and it moves me very, very easily. But so yeah, no, I just love this conversation. I could get a sense of every person's being in this orchestra that we have in this room, and even those that have not yet spoken up. You can sense that silent crescendo just waiting to build and build and build. And Philip, as a ruler, I'm waiting for the big kettle drums. To not just contribute, but to bring impact in a powerful, meaningful way that's succinct and strong. Lauren, the violin, the haunting, that power that sends the waves of just emotions through the room, starting with that first strike along of the bow across the strings. It's like ready, set, go, and then leading from within throughout. It's such a powerful experience, and the piano. You can't have an orchestra without that sounds of 88 keys in that room somewhere, adding, contributing, filling voids, creating space. Piano is an amazing instrument in that with all that it has going on, it contributes more than one thing. It's more than one instrument in my mind. Yeah, I'm loving where you guys are taking this magical conversation.
Thank you, Curtis. Now, for those of you who don't know our work exactly, and I prefer to Curtis as a philosopher and Philip as a ruler, and I'm a magician, and we'll get to a little bit more of that after we ask Philip what his view on the orchestra is.
Yeah, it's an interesting one as a right way and a ruler to ask a question that you get stunned with at an interview when someone says, and what animal would you be and why? And this sort of reminded me, what musical instrument would you be and why? It immediately took me to an interview. And then it took me to, I need to answer the question because I'm a right way. And the question was, what instrument would you be and why? And then I listened to Curtis, and he didn't tell us his instrument. He talked about everyone else's and what it does for him, which is great. My instrument initially would be piano again. And what the reason for that is I used to play. And what I love about a piano is its ability to run from the bass note right up to the highest notes, and for it to incorporate song and voice. So often with rehearsals, a piano would be used for the choir. And in an orchestra, a piano would get very little input in big symphonies. It would get, obviously for piano concertos, etc., would be the main instrument, but in an orchestra, it would not be the main instrument. And that's sort of me in a way. In a group, I'm not the main individual, but I will sit and listen to everything and then just say a couple of things which I hope would be succinct for the whole input. On that basis, however, what I would choose is the organ. I absolutely love organ music. And if you ever sit in a church and listen to an organ and just feel it resonate in your body, that is what really harmonizes with me in terms of musical instruments. So that's me.
That's beautiful. So what would I be? I thought about this, and I think I would be something to do with the drums, but it's something about the beat, because the drum will keep the tempo and the beat. When my husband creates a song on the keyboard, then he'll say, you know, I need a drum track. There's something which keeps that rhythm going, but the rhythms change. And if we align this whole conversation, this metaphor, to the authentic harmony in our communities and in our businesses and in our workplace, in our families, which is the mission of, you know, how do we create our future together? What is the music of the future now? What is, and obviously the music, as you said, Lauren, which I thought was great, is we are the music. So, you know, if we take this metaphor to business and it's a construction industry sector or is hospitality, we've got different music playing, we've got different pieces, and how does every player understand their parts? Where's the accountability? Who's the lead violinist? You know, where's the CEO? Is he always the conductor? Maybe he's the ruler that Philip is, who just pulls in the structure behind it, or is very quiet, or comes in with us to sing, no, we're not doing that, we're going this way. So this is what I was thinking about in terms of our experiences at an energy level. So authentic harmony is different for different situations, different people, but there's a harmony in a magical conversation, or all conversations. And I just wanted to pull up my, I'm going to actually do it by using a background here, because some of you know, and why can't I find it? Okay, where has it gone? I'm trying to find my virtual background that I just put up here. And it's gone. Okay. Don't you love it when technology doesn't work for you? Hang on a second. So I'm going to use it like this. I don't know whether you can see my screen. I'm going to actually move out of the way. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, which is Sam and Lauren, the rest of you have seen this before. So this is what we call the gender dynamics map. So we're looking at, if you like, in terms of music in the orchestra, is this piece is the human dynamics of different characters. So we have the ruler, and Philip referred to that energy, which was very, he said, you know, was very structured, bullet points, right way. And Curtis is our philosopher, who again is male, looking at things in straight lines, but there's a softness to it. There's questions, there's curiosity, seeking to find different rhythms in his part of this orchestra. And then we talk about women in terms of women being very circular. Our music is very got a rhythm of multitasking and circular nature. We're looking at lots and lots of different things, maybe all at once, but we're different types of women. So I'm a magician, so I've got more masculine energy. As you notice, the lines there are a little bit more zigzaggy, and the lines in the sovereign are circular. Now, I don't know which part of the orchestra this is. Maybe, you know, because Lauren, you've been actually involved in an orchestra, but I might see, just as a view, that the violins are in the circular bit, and maybe the zigzaggy is more percussion. It doesn't really matter. What it is about, as different people, how do we come together to learn the language of that music, which is authentic harmony? And it's authentic harmony that allows for the vision, the mission, and the strategy of creating a business. So as we looking in Corporate Heart International, we look at how do we engage the rhythm of all these individuals. So this map is called Gender Dynamics Intelligence, GDI for short, because that's easier to say. But the GDI understanding of this, the rhythm of this map, is what we believe will help us have the creative, magical conversations where we all respect our differences. So it's like the, you know, the violinists need to respect the percussion needs to respect the keyboard and the organ or the drums, and everybody is going to respect when the cymbals suddenly comes in at the one point of the piece where it's needed. And we might think, oh, well, the cymbal's not needed because he's only going to come in, you know, once in a blue moon. But as I'm sure you would know from being within that orchestra setting, Lauren, that every single note is important in the whole. So every single person in a community, be it the janitor or the you know, the team leader or the head of the family or the children, everybody is important in this mix. So this is what we're working on in terms of creating synergy, creating harmony. And I'm just going to take that off again, just so we can. But my goal in sharing that, and there can be more information, is I wanted to ask a second question here now for us to think on is, what is the, how do we deal with the disruptions? Because if we want to put the power grid together, that's our goal with these groups, is creating that new, we call it new narrative, but let's say it's a new piece of music, the music of creating our future together, but acknowledging differences, acknowledging these different characters coming in. What I see at the moment happening is a lot of disruptions in our own lives. And the question for me is how do we deal with the disruptions? How do we listen better? So I'd love your views on that, because it's been something I've been really focused on we're all wise here. We all, I would believe, would like it to be a smooth run, but we know that it's not a smooth run at the moment in the world. There's a lot of disharmony, I think, in the pieces of music that we hear out there. And I know this is something we've talked with Layla about in terms of the joy of bringing some of our conversations into businesses where there's stuck bits, there's just disharmony, but there's interruptions. So my question to you in this part is, what are the major interruptions in our lives, maybe personally and collectively or corporately, and how would we manage to get to this harmony? So anybody's thoughts? Into silence.
So I'm happy to pitch in straight away. To answer, can we listen better? Yes, we can, but that doesn't guarantee a change in anything. For me, the change comes when we check that we've understood what the other person is saying. So if we're listening to someone and we could say to ourselves, I've listened really hard, so I've understood what you said. That may not be the case at all. We know when we're speaking to a group of people and we say the one thing we say, if you then asked the group of people, what did you understand? You would get more than one version of what was said and more than one understanding or more than one outcome of what was said. And if you apply that into a training or a development environment, then there's always an opportunity for someone to hear something that wasn't said or someone to misinterpret what was said. So listening is part of it, but for me, it's the bit that becomes important to check is check that you've listened correctly or check that you've understood the intention of the speaker. What for the major interruptions in life is always about, there's always more to do than there is time to do it. And there's the balance of the question, which when someone says, well, have you got time to do that? And you say, well, I haven't got the time. And what you're really saying is, I'm not going to prioritize that over other things that need to take place first. So I always think there is enough time. That's not the issue. You can't stretch it, you can't shorten it, you can't do anything to it. It's not elastic, but you can prioritize what you choose to do. So for me, someone saying, I don't have the time is them saying, I don't want to do it. But again, if we're talking about listening, I'm interpreting what they're saying to my understanding of, I'm not prioritizing that because I don't have the time. So that's me.
So that's interesting. It's a lot of it is, as we put on the map, is that how do we misunderstand the natural biases that we see in our piece of music if we come bringing that map together? What are your thoughts, Sam? I felt you were clicking there about what are the disruptions?
So I was very, I love the categorization that you used for the model with the ruler and the
philosopher, magician, sovereign.
Yeah, and I like how you differentiated the thinkers and the feelers. And I often feel like in my work, that is the biggest disconnect and I think that was the question, what are the major interruptions and how do we manage? And so every time there is an interruption, like Philip had mentioned, there's a lot of times the receiving of what the interruption is can be different for each individual, and harmonizing that understanding. And I think one of the best ways to do that is through the very first domain of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness. And by simply understanding whether you're coming from a place of thinking or a place of feeling can be so powerful in empathizing and then in empathizing, we start to understand others' perspectives. And then as we can comprehensively identify those perspectives, we can then as leaders harmonize our team or our orchestra so that there is a continuity in how we're moving forward.
And that word is really good, continuity and accountability coming into this matrix. And there is within that, so imagine that circle is basically saying we're male, female, we're masculine and feminine, and we're looking at those core energies. So there is a thinking feeling, almost two thinking feelings. There's the aspect of men being more task focused and factual, and women being more relational and emotional, but also the masculine energy and the feminine energy meeting across the grid. So there is a lot more complexity to it, obviously, but what I love is this conversation is just about helping us being aware. For me, it's about everybody's on the map. So if we went back 100 years, the map was quite different in business. But now we're 100%, all of us engaged, women and men of all different cultures and different preferences and different diversities. And it's what I love what you said about how do we receive the interruption, which is alludes to what Philip was saying as well, is when I was working only last night with these women in Malaysia who are in a very structured government business organization, I asked them to go into their meetings now over the next week before I meet them again and have a sense of the energy of the meeting as opposed to the production side of the meeting.
Yeah.
What does it look like, sound like, feel like, behave like? Because if we want to achieve harmony, and it's not always the music we want to play, there might be different pieces of music, but if we're looking at the piece of music which is harmony, my sense is we want to be received. So we want to have our own self-awareness and be received, but also understand how we deal with these interruptions.
Yeah.
Because there are interruptions. And in fact, I think we talked about this last month. John was in a group with me, and we were talking about the environment. The environment makes a difference. Like, where is the orchestra playing?
Yeah.
Is it in the Hollywood Bowl, or is it in some, backwood, dirty theatre? I don't know whether, the environment and the players and the interruptions. So what other interruptions could we put into this magical conversation, Leila?
Yeah, that was my idea too. Macro environment. It's quite disruptive since 2020 with COVID. That's what I'm living to now. And so, for example, I was really every day in the office last year and this year until the regulation changed again and the rules are changed again. And now I'm completely away from the office, but still I'm still working intensively, but very far away from my colleagues. And so, but I managed to adapt still. We need to adapt constantly. Every day there could be news that changes the rules again, right? Also at the working place at school. Then we really need to be nimble and stop complaining too. I mean, being brave and really navigate through the disruptions. That's what I'm feeling now. And this harmony, keeping harmony, yeah. It's like virtual work does work.
Yes.
Yeah, that we have Joe Fix, for example, every week. So that keeps us like united more or less, even if we don't have all the same conditions, or how to say. We didn't make the same decisions in terms of COVID regulations, but still we are like keeping united in the team and having Joe Fix and keeping working, keeping helping each other, because there's so much work, so many requests that's still positive. People need us, and so that's our thread, right? navigating through the really the uncertainties of the macro environment. That's my feeling now.
So navigating through the uncertainties. So what strikes me with the orchestra and the music metaphor is that it's like the symphony is changing halfway through.
Yeah, and all around the world, like we're connected remotely, and then I can feel the people singing the same song, like saying, yeah, it's hard. And so we're trying to keep together, keeping hope, motivating them too. That's what I'm experiencing, really. And it works, actually. It's like we're living the similar things.
Yes.
Many people, really, and not in all hemispheres. That's really, it's, for me, it's unique. That's, for me, I've never lived something like that. So.
Well, that's right. And what Philip just wrote there, it might be a key change rather than moving the whole symphony from 2 to 3. And I think that's the awareness that we want to develop with what we're doing here, is that there's almost a flexible structure to our world. I mean, I know I read the news this morning that Germany is having some serious new problems with COVID and lockdown. So whether that, and you're in Germany, and you know, yeah, all those things are going to influence you locally and countrywide, yeah, as well as people reading on the news and going, that disruption, I don't know what.
You need to stay calm and exactly, and then to try to like adapt and quickly organize your schedule due to school, due to any, you know, family life, work life. That's what I'm experiencing. Right. It's not, yes, that negative, actually. It's like, it makes, yes, you strong and confident.
Makes you strong, yes. So being in that space of being aware with each other about their tensions and the changes and adaptability, that's something that, again, when we look at the map, people react to change in different ways, but it's, yeah, constant.
Panic, a lot of panic sometimes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lauren, would you like to share?
Sure, I can. You know, before you asked the question around, you know, what are some of the disruptions, just the initial conversation, the starting point of that conversation, what I first was thinking about was that what I feel like seemingly that a lot of humans have a hard time grasping the fact that we are actually, because as a person who's, you know, does work that's inspired by nature, nature-based, influencing the work I do, you know, I think about interconnectedness. And, you know, when you're in an orchestra, everything's interconnected. It's like there are nested holes. There are, you know, individual players, but they combine and they're all important, because if you take out one instrument, that's not the same symphony, you know? And so I think that in, you know, with these different disruptions that are happening, people tend to forget that we actually are dependent and interdependent of one another, that we can't just be doing things on our own, by ourselves. And that importance of being able to adapt. If other species have disruptions, they adapt. If they don't, they die. You know, like, you know, so we've learned to evolve and adapt to our surroundings. So there's that importance of being able to listen to one another, understand one another, work with each other, collaborate, partner, not compete, you know, in order to thrive, you know. And I think in terms of like future thrivability, and if we want to have a good symphony experience and for the piece to thrive, you know, something like that we have to be working with one another, you know. So maybe, you know, what do we do when the temperature changes in the room, or somebody gets sick, or maybe, you know, granted, because of the nature of our world, sometimes there's new instruments that are added, right? It maybe the piece evolves, you know. So how do we navigate that? But it's like having that sense of like awareness, but also openness, not being closed, not being judgmental, not being righteous, you know, and kind of understanding the like dynamics of the systems and the people and the all the factors that are around us, you know. So when you have something like COVID, it's not like I'm just going to keep doing the things that I was doing because this is how I understand things work. It's like, well, no, you actually need to adapt. That's what we do as humans. We've done it over thousands of years, as do other species. Yes. And they evolve their features in their bodies and the way they do things. I was just watching a program where it was showing about how like these monkeys that were isolated on an island, no other, that type of macaw, only on that island, they've learned to adapt to, you know, use rocks to shuck oysters. And no other macaws anywhere else in the world shuck oysters. That macaw shucks oysters. They learn to adapt, you know? Yeah. So it's like you get with the program, you understand what's happening in your surroundings and you work and you sense into things. There's this like using collective intelligence and sense making to evolve to and to continually adapt to you know, what's happening.
Yeah, so that's great. So there is this need for us to embrace all of these aspects into the new narrative, the new piece of music, the new symphony, or whatever we call it. Any comments, John and Curtis, on this? Because there's so many amazing good points coming up here. I love it. Your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think that being able to adapt, either maybe in the short term, it might be costly. I think what happens with a lot of businesses a lot of times might be that adaptations might cost a lot more. They might think that it might cost a lot more, but if you don't adapt, I think the cost is a lot bigger because you'll be wiped out. And so in the long run, adapting pays. And I also was thinking about in terms of just distributive leadership, that if like moving from more of like hierarchical type leadership to more distributive leadership, that everyone owns up, you know, in the orchestra. So the conductor is not the, you know, the only leader, but you know, everyone within their own segment owns up to their own leadership, and they know the heart of the organization. So based on how well they know the heart of the organization, they're able to perform their leadership in that specific position to the best of their ability.
Yeah, thank you. Curtis, anything you want to add?
Just more support, I think, really to like, you mentioned mind flow and mindset a little bit earlier on in the conversation. And I think just maybe just a reminder that, especially for those of us who would consider ourselves coaches or whatever, a lot of focus is on mindset. What's very little, or what is not brought up very often, is mind flow. And that's really, this is the adaptability that we're talking about right now. And that's, and if I look at that whole thing as mind state, because if you're a sailor and you're going to step out in the ocean on your boat, you want to understand the state of the seas or the sea state, and make an assessment of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, or even if you're going to do it at all. And you go with the flow, or you set your sails, or I mean, there's lots of different ways of approaching this. And business is not much different, especially as a leader, is looking at the state of what you're faced with, whatever that it is.
Yes.
And intentionally make a decision of, I'm going to let go of what I set my mind to, because the bigger goal is more important to me. and go into a state of flow, and until you find out when it's time to actually set your mind again, and then dial in the goals and make it make it happen. And that happened so much that it was really disruptive for a lot of people. It's actually led to a lot of hate and a lot of anxiety over the past, I'll say, 2 years. So that's just the intensity of angst going on in the world right now, is because there's been too much flow and not enough set. And yet, how do we move things forward without the set? In terms of how we use, philosophies, models, or approaches like what we're talking about right now, we really have to get clear on what the goal is, and then determine what is the next course of action. So I'm thinking that really this dialogue here today is really more of we're in more of a mind state, trying to assess what the state of the seas are, and figure out what is the course of action. Now, Pauline, you, Philip, and I are, in terms of what we're doing, we have a lot more of a mindset happening because we understand the flow. But in terms of the context of this conversation, where we're introducing a concept, we should really be in a mind flow state where we're actually learning and adapting different ways of thinking, different ways of modeling, different ways of approaching an outcome that's desired.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very beautiful conversation, and I'm absolutely full of gratitude for it this morning. I was extremely tired waking up this morning because I was running this program with Malaysia. The consequence of the time zone is that I had to run a 3-hour session from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., which always is my evening as opposed to their morning. And I think even the time zones of the world are an interesting part of the changes that we have in our world, because we're working in this kind of online hybrid office, online. You can find that your day gets stretched. I'm sure that happens for you all. I know it happens for you, Leila, because you're dealing with America and you're in Germany. And sometimes, I've got early morning calls with UK, and then I've got late afternoon calls with Malaysia and Asia. Your day suddenly becomes really long, and you think that you're superhuman and you can just do it all. But the magic for me about what we were exploring, and I hope those who, certainly Sam and Lauren, who are new to this map, there's a lot of depth in this, and I'd love to take that into an extra session with each of you, Sam and Lauren, because you haven't explored it before. But what we're looking at is really understanding different types of men and women. And the reason that we start with the gender dynamics as opposed to all the other diversities, that this is the inclusive map of the circle of life. And our view is that we get into the conversation in the middle, we understand our baseline energies, and as we've all explored, we see disruptions differently as well. But how do we create this narrative, this orchestra piece, this symphony, whatever we like to call it, is, we're writing it in real time. That's the way I see it. So we write it in real time in businesses and in society and in our home environments as well. We are always interacting with people, so whether it's online or real time, face to face. The mission here is to value each other for our differences. And I've gained a lot from today's conversation, so I hope you have as well, and really listening to the interruptions of our world and our own internal stresses and tensions. I think that is really where a lot of energy gets dissipated. I don't know whether any of you have heard of the 5 rhythms. I don't know, have you heard of the 5 rhythms dance? No? I will send it to you, but it was, have you heard of it, Lauren? Yeah,
Yes.
It's basically, and I can't remember the lady who who started it, but there was somebody who looked at, during our day, we have kind of 5 rhythms, and they rise up to a peak and then down. But I actually went to an event in England where there was 100 women and everybody was dancing on their own, but together. It wasn't like a line dance. Nobody was doing the same thing, but we were dancing to these different rhythms as the pattern of your day, and how we deal with our rhythms as we wake up and we raise our energy, and then we get to a high peak and then we soften down. And I found it fascinating, because if I look at the world and really the tensions that are around, this is where we need to find our music and find our rhythm and find our dance together. And as Philip has reminded me, we are coming to the end of our hour, and with your permission, I've recorded this and I will post it up on my YouTube channel, because what we do is we share this as ways of inviting more conversation in order to take this forward. In a very specific sense, we use this instrument and a lot of tools around it to work with corporations, work with companies, work with entrepreneurs, with leaders, and all of their teams, in order to understand how they can engage with each other and keep on increasing the conversation of all the differences around the map. So if that's of interest for you, then we'd love to talk more, but want to continue the conversation and gather these thoughts, because we've got a world in need. I think we all agree that. So any last thoughts about how you feel? A one-word feeling? Anybody want to offer? I feel very grateful and very, very chilled out, and I'm hugely grateful. Anybody want one word?
Thank you. I'm also very grateful for the thought sharing, and it's always nice to have a kind of spontaneous thinking, like, right? Because for me, I just try to be spontaneous. What comes first to my mind, and even if it's about my private life, or yeah, it's the inner self, right? It's really important to stay authentic. So I really appreciate your great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really enables me to express spontaneously what I feel, and it was really great, really interesting to listen to all of us, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I say hopeful.
Thank you, John. Sam? Lauren?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to explore with everyone, and I love the metaphor of a symphony. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I hope you'll come back again and we'll talk further. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
I'm also grateful. Just just a lovely conversation, new topic, and new connections. So, yeah.
Anybody want one more word? One word. Okay. Well, let's close this then, and thank you all for being here. And we will be here. We do talk to Asia and Australia on the 1st of December if you want to join in from the UK. And it's not good for the UK because it's the middle of the night, but on December the 1st at 5 p.m, we get online and we talk to our friends in Asia and Australia on a similar theme, but we don't want them to get up in the middle of the night. So we don't get Philip and Lila on that one because it would be 3 o'clock in the morning or something.